The Dead Life, you'll be hearing from Karen Anderson, a pet psychic and retired deputy sheriff. She's going to tell us about her work communicating with deceased pets for clients and her latest book, The Pet I Can't Forget. She also is the CEO of Painted Rain Ranch Animal Sanctuary, a final refuge for pets no one else wants. I know that many of my listeners have lost beloved pets. You won't want to miss this episode. You can follow me on my only Instagram page at Medium Allison, no underscores, and check the spelling. There are a lot of scammers out there. On my Facebook fan page, and you can binge on my YouTube videos to watch readings, including episodes of The Dead Life. If you have abilities of your own and are looking to expand them and connect with other gifted people, go to deaduniversity.com and join one of my classes. If you have a question for me about the afterlife, a life question about a current or past relationship for my Love Me, Love Me Not episodes, or are just curious about your own abilities, call me and leave me a message at 802-332-3811. Well, Karen, thank you so much for being here today. I know that my listeners want to hear all about what made you switch from being a deputy sheriff to a pet psychic. Like, what was your deputy sheriff story? Were you a little kid that grew up and wanted to arrest the bad guy and help the good guy, and that's why you became a deputy sheriff? Have you always had that feeling?
Actually, it was the opposite. I grew up always wanting to work with
Oh,
animals.
okay.
And yes, and I never thought of being in law enforcement ever. Never had held a gun before. It was like not even on my radar, but I felt this
Mm-hmm.
pull, this invisible, I can't even describe it. Like I was being kind of thrown into that
Mm-hmm.
arena and I went with it. I just followed where I was being drawn, and eventually it led me to being a pet psychic animal communicator. So I'm sure it'll make sense someday down the road, but at the time, no, made absolutely no sense at all. And
Did you work with a
it just,
canine? Were you a canine officer?
I was not. I was a patrol deputy. So I responded to 911s, traffic accidents, domestic violence, assaults. I was this street deputy, basically.
Apparently, they missed a calling there and putting a German Shepherd or a canine in your hands to help you to work
Yeah,
through your day, because I think that would have been incredible for both you and the animal and a great opportunity to sort of merge both worlds.
I agree. I would have loved it. Very, very small department, though.
So, I mean, I'm just curious. Do you know a lot of cadaver dog trainers? Do you have, are those in your circle?
No, I haven't worked with any of those. There was one canine officer on our department, but he worked in the another district, so I didn't get to work with him very
Okay.
often,
I just
unfortunately.
found in being in having worked cases and dealing with murder for I did it for 20 years, and then I decided to stop because all my girlfriends in law enforcement were retiring, and I was like, don't I get to retire too? So I hung
Right.
that up. But you know, I have Dead University, and I'm training some of my students have a sort of a knack for profiling and getting into people's heads. And one of the big questions they're always asking me, and I think it would be great to have a different perspective from someone else who's a sensitive and also works crimes. Um, how, for you, working with law enforcement in cases, did they take you more seriously because you were a deputy sheriff, or did you have to earn their trust?
Okay, it cut out on me a little bit, so I only caught the end of that
Oh,
question.
yeah, that's easy to say. That wasn't written. Okay. So my question was, a lot of my students who are in my profiling class that are, they have a knack for working crimes. They always are asking me how to be taken seriously by law enforcement. So for you, did they take you seriously because you had a background as a deputy sheriff, or did you have to earn their trust?
No, it was very much I kept my psychic work and my law enforcement work very separate. I did not tell anyone on the department what I was doing or that I was able to communicate with spirits or animals on crime scenes. Didn't let anyone know that. It was very much a male
Yes.
oriented department.
Yes. Even in my
And
experience, even when you're working with women, one of my now very good friends, and we've been friends since around, let's see, I think I won her trust somewhere around 2000, 2001. She did not want me working as a jury consultant for the prosecution. It was uniquely and wonderfully, it was a man who happened to be her boss and had say over her. He brought me in. And so he had faith in me. So, before I thought, well, women, they're going to be more open. But when it comes to law enforcement, you just never know. Yes.
you don't know. And, I kept it very much to myself. What was happening at the time, I didn't even understand it because I was in a new state of heightened awareness, being a deputy and just, being super, super aware of my surroundings. It kind of kickstarted or snowballed or launched me on my spiritual awakening path of opening up the clairs and just making me more aware of my surroundings and my own abilities and my own intuition. And so that was a whole journey in and of itself. Everything was happening at the same time, and it was fascinating, and I couldn't get enough of it. But at the same time, I couldn't tell anybody what I was doing, and I was just kind of figuring this all out on my own as situations
In
arose.
my experience,
So,
law enforcement, a lot of people in law enforcement, and the same with people that are nurses or go into healthcare, they tend to be psychic because you hear detectives say all the time, I had a hunch, I had a gut feeling. Well, what's that?
yes,
That's what we do. It's no
right,
different. So I think if
right.
people stopped putting us in a box of woo woo and that it's something taboo or strange, they would find that what we do is absolutely human. It's who we're supposed to be. Animals sense danger. People do too, but people are unfortunately not as committed as animals are to paying attention to that sense that they have, and they let their mind override their intuition. So it's interesting being what is, working to be a civilized society. You find that people becoming more academic moved away from spiritual and being more spiritual and feeling their own sense and vibe of things that they trust. So we have to teach them to do that now because it's not ingrained in everyone once they get past childhood. Their own sort of our own human arrogance kicks in, if you will.
It does. And, there's a lot of ego as
Yeah,
well. I'm sure you experienced that as well. And, ego can be really good. It can be in the right place at the right time. It can really be helpful. But especially in a department, if you're a female, I was the only female officer in our district. So I had to work smarter, faster, better. I mean, when I qualified on the range, my target had to be
yeah,
perfect. It was just every I was scrutinized for everything I did, and I have no
right.
regrets. It was a great experience, and I grew from it. Made me really tough because as a psychic, let me tell you, you got to have some thick
Yes.
skin,
Well,
right?
and that's one of the things that I find people will say, why do you think that you were, out of all people, sort of divinely selected to have this show and, to be in the position you're at? But what they don't recognize is I had to say yes to every challenge that would scare the hell out of other people. So I think part of the reason I was given the opportunity to live the life that I have is because I am brave in the sense that I will take it on the chin. I am thick skinned and I can navigate the difference between the other side and the living. And I say this all the time. I honestly feel closer to the dead than I do to the living. They just don't have all the issues that we have, and they're honest and straightforward. And you deal with the living, and it's like, trying to sift through what's real and what's not and what they're hiding. And it's exhausting living in the living world.
It really is. And when I started my journey, it's
Yeah.
true. I was all about the
Yeah.
animals. I didn't have any interest in connecting with human spirits, but they kept coming through.
Right.
And they kept showing up with the animals. And it was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to communicate with the human spirits too. So, everything was just an unfolding and really just expanding. um, I wasn't even psychic before I started. I didn't even,
Some,
I worked really, really hard. I had to work really hard because I didn't come from, generations
right.
of psychics.
Sometimes
So
there's a
I was in the
timing to it
trenches.
in your system and in your life story. Some people, it just gets sort of um, turned up as they go through different stages in life, and then you're given other or stronger abilities and you move in a different direction with your abilities. So it's interesting. And I had a grandmother that knew when people were going to die, but to me that just didn't seem weird. But the rest of my family, we didn't talk about any of that. So I get what you're saying. As a kid though, I really just thought everybody had it, and it's like wink wink, nod nod, like we're just not
Yeah,
going to talk about it, but we all have it. So to grow up and become an
right.
adult and realize not everybody did was the shocking thing for me. So did you have like a near death experience, or the audio just started coming in louder?
I had basically, as a kid, I could communicate with my animals, my pets, as a child. So I thought everybody could, like you said. I
Well,
didn't
we grew up on
realize
Dr.
I was
Doolittle,
being,
right? We watched it on Disney. We're like,
yes,
of course people can talk to pets.
Disney, Bugs Bunny. I lived about 20 minutes away from Disneyland, so we went there all the time. And my favorite attraction was the Tiki Room, where all the birds would
Yeah.
sing and the flowers would
Yeah.
bloom in the tiki room. So everything was talking.
The
All
bare
the animals would
necessity,
talk.
all
So
kinds of animals doing a
yeah,
jig.
it just. And then what I did is I closed it off because I got so much kickback from
Yeah.
everyone. So I kind of stuffed it away. So it sat there
So
for a
it was
long
already
time and I
there. You
didn't.
innately always had it. You just didn't have an outlet because you got your hand slapped basically. And a
I
lot
did.
of gifted people when they're young and that happens, they start keeping it to themselves and not sharing it because it's not accepted amongst the people that they trust the most. And that's unfortunate that that's the case, but that's why I work with kids and stuff now who have abilities, because fortunately, parents are more open now than they were for our generation. At the
Yes.
time, I just remembered watching a Disney movie where the girl would go into the attic and there was a spirit in the attic of another child, and she'd talk to the child. It made total sense to me. And then somewhere in time where Jane Seymour dies and Christopher Reeve dies, and you see them in heaven together and they've been reunited. I'm like, yes. So I thought everybody sort of understood. It's like, okay, so we're all on the same page. We get this is how it works. But that was not the case. So I understand why that must have been very difficult for you to keep it inside yourself. And we didn't really journal it so much. We had diaries back then, but nothing where you could write at
Yeah.
length so much. We were just figuring it out. So I think we're pretty tough because we had to learn things the hard way. But for you, working with law enforcement, as somebody who's communicating with the animals, um, how does that work for you? I mean, is there ever a payoff? Just the sense of that you helped, is that your payoff in this process?
I think so, especially when in law enforcement, because there were times where I would arrive on a crime scene and we didn't know what happened. We're still investigating, we're still trying to determine what's going on. And I always gravitated toward the
Hmm.
animals just
Yeah.
naturally. And I would make sure that they were always cared for and, contact the animal control people to come out and take care of them, especially if there was some kind of tragedy or crisis. And so I wanted the animals to be okay. Sometimes in situations there were deceased individuals on the scene and the animals are left, in this frantic situation, and that just breaks my
Sure.
heart. And sometimes they witness these
Right.
things. They're there when things happen. And so I wanted to, yes, make them feel safe and help them understand what happened. But what, Allison, the crazy part was they started showing me what
Mm-hmm.
happened. They started telling me who was the aggressor,
Right.
where suspects are hiding, and that just floored
That's
me. I was just
that's what I
blown
was
away by
curious
that.
about from your perspective, because I deal with mostly people on the other side. I will see animals, or I can tell how they felt when they died, and I can describe like the bathroom floor they were on when they died, that sort of thing. But I don't really I don't go into communication with them on a deeper level than knowing how they felt around that time and who they loved. So for you, can you walk us through what that's like for you, getting into their psyche and hear and talking to them and extracting information?
Mostly I am clairaudient, so I would hear words or sentences, partial
Hmm.
sentences, but it would be in my voice. And it would seem like it was my thought, but I knew it wasn't my
Yes,
thought because I
exactly.
wasn't thinking
Hmm.
it. So I would hear something and it would catch my attention, and then I would ask for more information. So when you connect with an animal, the one thing that you have to be is just purely loving and safe for them. They need to feel that you are a safe spot, especially in a crisis situation. So I would always just be loving and kind and tell them that I was there to help them, mentally, quietly in my mind. And they would literally just start sharing images. I would get feelings. I could see little mini movies playing about what they saw or what happened before I got on a crime scene. And they don't necessarily follow chronological order. So you have to be mindful. They'll share snippets or flashes of something, and then it's up to me to connect the dots and figure out the story of how it all happened. But it's one of the most incredible experiences. I'm so addicted to it that an animal can actually share an experience with me, and I receive it. The messages come to me in a format that I understand. Because a lot of people might be thinking, well, animals can't talk, so how are you understanding this? There's
Yeah,
a translation that
right.
happens. I don't know
I
how
know
it
it's
works.
it's
I have a
telepathy.
theory.
It's telepathy. Like
It
they're
is.
they're communicating with us telepathically, feeling what we feel, we're feeling what they feel. There's like a strong connection, which is what I do with people and criminals. I get into the criminals' energy to feel what they were feeling at that time. It helps with motive. I think your law enforcement training helps you a great deal to be able to put those different scenes together that the animal doesn't have in chronological order. Do you ever pick up on things when you're bringing them through? And this is out of curiosity. I don't know if any of my listeners have wondered about this, but when they have puppies and kittens, does it bother them when the puppies or the kittens are rehomed? Or is that okay for them?
Oh, oh, you're gonna don't make me
Oh,
cry, Allison. I'm a big softie when it comes to this stuff. So yes, it's troubling. Yes, they don't understand. How would you feel if I walked into your home and took
right,
you away from everything that you knew and loved? And it can be like
right.
that. So rehoming is a very tender subject for me, and it just, yes, they're very adaptable and they can do very well once they get to their new location in a loving family, absolutely. However, the process itself can be very traumatic, very disturbing. They don't understand what's going on. I have shared that communicating with most animals. There's going to be exceptions, of course. Some are really intelligent and very evolved, others not so much. Most are lie somewhere in the middle. It's almost like having a conversation with maybe an 8, 9 year old child. It's right somewhere in that
Hmm.
range most of the time. So I try to talk to mine in that format as if I were addressing a young child and describe to them what's going to happen. Or I'll show them in my mind mental images of what to expect in a kind and loving
Hmm.
way, because they do get
Yes.
traumatized.
Well, and you could tell with some dogs that are skittish around men, and then you understand, I mean, that you just immediately know that they were abused by whoever had them before. I think it's kind of great. The one thing that I do really like about social media is the videos of like animal rescues, where they show
Yes.
you the before and the after and the loving
Yeah.
home. And I think that's really wonderful for people to see. I remember as a little girl, there was one day when the pound in Paradise Valley where I grew up was empty. There was like one day where there were no animals in the pound.
Wow.
And it was such a special day. And I just thought, because I grew up with a mom who showed Weimaraners, and so there were puppies, they were bred, and there were puppies, and they were show dogs. And I grew up in that world, and I really didn't understand it. I just knew I liked Weimaraners a lot. They were pretty. Um, and it just seemed to me when I was watching all of that happen, I knew that you could fix animals, and I didn't understand why everybody didn't do that. And then you grow up and become an adult, and you look at all of the irresponsible people that are around, and it's frustrating that people don't immediately, when they have an animal, just get it fixed. And um, the animal can live its life as a pet and be happy, and it doesn't have to worry about going through the physical strain of pregnancy and birth. So I just I always thought that if they charge people enough, if you don't get your cat fixed, we're going to take your house. It'd stop.
Right.
But I kind of don't think the
Right.
animal foundations will ever let it happen because they make so much money. So I just don't think that that's going to happen. And the animal foundation's totally necessary, not digging on them at all. Just saying a lot of businesses would be obsolete if everybody had to get their animal fixed, or they take your house or your social security or your benefits. It would motivate people to do the right thing. And unfortunately, it takes sometimes severe penalty to get them to do that. So, just a little plug out there for if you're going to get a pet, get it fixed, take care of them,
Yep.
and love the ones you have. Um, so do you hear living animals' thoughts as well? Is that right? So you hear them
That's right.
deceased
Yeah.
and alive. Um, how did your friends
Hmm.
and family react to your career change?
Oh gosh.
Did you switch friend groups?
Not
Were
really.
you like switching them out because they didn't understand? Because that happens. Sometimes you'll get more psychic friends, fewer law enforcement friends, all of a sudden Christmas party invitations not coming your way so swiftly. There's a change up that happens.
There is, and let's just say that the people that I thought were my friends in law enforcement, not so
Yeah.
much. And then, yes, I found my new tribe. And, it's really sad that that's what it comes down
Yeah.
to, because I was just following my
Right.
path. I was doing what I was called to do. And I don't know if that's something that people just don't like when you follow your dream and pursue it and make things
Karen,
happen.
in
I
my
don't know what
experience
that is.
with this exact topic, they have something to hide. The only reason
Okay.
that they're uncomfortable is they're afraid you're going to read their thoughts or pull impressions off of them. Nobody else cares. They're fine with it. They're like, whatever, my friend does that, but like we don't talk about it. It's people who have something to hide. So I guarantee you, the people that separated themselves out from you, there's something in their head and their heart they don't want you to access. So it's not you.
Right. And it's I was all about the animals, so I really kind of pushed the human element aside.
Sure.
I was really focusing on the animals for a very long time, and then I just couldn't. I got tired of trying to tell the human spirits, I'm sorry, but this is all about the animals, because sometimes the clients would just want to hear from their cat
Right.
or their dog or their horse or whoever it was. So it became a juggling act. They'd come in, I could feel the energies coming in, and I'd be like, oh, here we go.
Right.
So I never knew who was going to show up during a session. And, it became really interesting to see the different way that humans communicated versus the animals. Like humans, oh, you'll totally relate to this. Okay, so the humans would sometimes they wouldn't be
Right.
forthcoming. They'd kind of stand off to the side, like in the shadows. They wouldn't step into the
Right.
light. And then other times they would be like front and center and like standing right in front of me, like, I have a message to share. The animals weren't like that at all. They just came through. They just heart and soul and just poured everything into it. It's just such a different dynamic.
With people, I don't know if this will help you if you ever wanted to go in this direction, but there, some of the ones that will hold back were suicides. So they sort of do this tap dance around not wanting to talk about how they died, but they need to talk to the person that is my client. So I explained to them, you either talk through me or they're not going to hear you. And once that was stated,
Yes.
they relax and give into it. Or because they're an older generation, I call myself a secretary to the dead, and they're comfortable with me as a secretary because they had them. And so thinking of
Oh,
me taking notes and passing it on makes them more comfortable with my function instead of of me as somebody with a crystal ball. So it's sort of all in how they perceive you.
right. That's a great idea. And I remember there were some times where some of them would only give me sign language, like thumbs up, thumbs down. I developed this whole like all these different symbols using different hand signals to communicate with them, because they either wouldn't or couldn't speak or share their feelings or emotions with me telepathically. So there was a lot going on in those sessions. And anyone who has done this kind of work at all knows that you are
Oh,
multitasking
yes.
to the nth
Yes.
degree when you are in the middle of a session. I mean, you've got the client you're dealing with, you have the spirit energies coming through, you have your own energy coming through, you have all of this stuff. Sometimes you have spirit guides, angels. I mean, you just never know who's going to show up
To me,
during a
it's the living
session.
people that are the most challenging in getting their energy aligned because they all are different combinations of energy and
Yes.
experiences. And do they run agendas? Something they think you should be saying that they're not hearing. And so they're not hearing everything else you're saying, even though they'll repeat what you just said as, oh, I thought you'd say this. It's like, I did say that. Go listen to the recording. So you're fighting noises around them. Like we tell my clients, no babies, no barking dogs, like none of that. It breaks my connection with the other side. Noise does. So I need it to be
Yes.
quiet. So
Yes.
there's all kinds of things that we have to lay out in order to give them the best possible experience for themselves. You teach, though, don't you? You teach a class or a course on
I do.
communication. So if people wanted to find
I
that,
do.
where would they go to have you teach them how to make sense of their animal communication?
Well, I offer a Facebook practice group, and you can find that through my website, and I'm sure the links will be there. I'll share them at
Yes.
the end. But I have a Facebook group that is very active, and in that group, there's free training, meaning that the members post a pet, and the other members practice with
Great.
those
Yes.
pets. So everybody, yeah, everybody can jump on and practice. And then I'll pop in and I'll add my little, suggestions and help. And there's training videos. So there's a free group there if you're interested in free. I also have a mobile app called Pet Loss, Hope and Healing. And there's free training in the app if you opt in as a member. It's free to opt in as a member. And I also have an online course for beginners. And it is a very unique course because, Allison, get this. There's probably something wrong with me for doing this, but there's about 20 modules and all the pets are provided, all the practice sessions are provided. I provide personal feedback in every single module.
Wow.
So you get me as your coach in a beginner's online course. I know.
That's a lot.
It's
That's
crazy.
a lot.
But I love it is. It is. And if you're just listening and thinking, well, what's so hard about that?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And I love helping people have that aha moment. I love that. That's what I'm all about. It's like when it clicks and they get a message and it's like mind blowing, right? So I devote myself to passing the torch. I want to take all this knowledge that I have earned and worked so hard for, and I want to pass it along to others who are on the same path, who want to learn, who are open-minded, even if you don't think you're psychic or whatever, that's fine. And then I also have intermediate and advanced private coaching. So I will work with you one-on-one for wherever you're
That's
at.
great.
And so all of that, yes, is what I do right now, and it's my total
So
passion, as well as
if you
writing my
pull
books,
in any
which is
students who want to work crimes and they're trying to figure out how to infiltrate law enforcement, I tell my students, and this might help yours, go online. There's a bunch of cadaver dog runners. A lot of them are women that volunteer. And you make groups or friendships with these people, and they work on cases on their own, and often will pull in a psychic friend to work cases with. And then the students that you have can
Nice.
practice that way. So I'm like, forget law enforcement right now. Find a cadaver dog runner, work a couple cases, find a body, then they'll listen to you. So that can be a helpful tool. And the cadaver dog runners also need somebody with vision. So it's sort of a beautiful marriage between the two passions, I think.
I agree. And there's so much that, again, there's this, the payoff you were asking me about earlier. When I can help a victim, when I can help somebody, as when I was in law enforcement, that called 911, that is in a crisis, and I can help them. When I can help an animal transition smoother, or help an animal understand what's happening, or help their human understand them better, the payoffs are all there. It's kind of selfish in a way, because it fills my heart to be able to help in these various ways. And then that just kind of washes into my coaching and my programs. Yeah. I'm helping somebody. This wasn't around. People like me weren't around when I started all those years ago. I didn't have social media. I didn't have practice groups. I didn't have anybody that was willing to go, hey, you want to learn this? Come on, let's go. You had to figure it out by yourself. Yes. I went to the bookstore to get books on animal communication, and all I could find was astrology and tarot. There was nothing. Well,
and then even when they when they do have books, and you're trying, sometimes you can't relate to their style, where you're like, that's not how I get it, or you just don't vibe with the person. And so I had to do it the hard way and write my own book and say, this is how I got it. Like, if you're like me and you vibe with me, you might understand it like this as well. So there's that whole vibe aspect to it, because there were just certain mediums that were an older generation that I couldn't relate to as people or as in their style. Absolutely. And I had to create my own. And maybe the younger generation will feel the same way, but I also find that's why there are so few great people in each camp of psychic and mediumship, because it's not easy to make it your life and to, exercise that muscle of spirit inside of you and live soulfully. And I don't want to say even the word authentically, just being you without letting outside influences change your personality or try and take you off your path. So my style is very straightforward. I'm very emotional and I can be very loving. I'm empathetic. I'm soulful, but I'm not a doormat either. So a lot of people vibe with that with me just because they know I'm going to tell them the truth. But for some people who are really, their feelings get hurt too easily and they want everything wrapped up in a pink fluffy bow, yeah, I'm not your girl. Go over there. So it's good that there's
Right.
multiple people in
Right.
our field so that people have options of who they vibe with and want to learn from. So I think it's great that you have a course. I also would say many people who have the ability to hear animals don't think they're doing that. They think their mind's making it up, and teaching them how to
Yeah.
accept that they are hearing animal communication is half the battle, I would expect for you in teaching them.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, but if you live with animals, if you have, I don't like to call them pets because that just doesn't do them justice. If you live with your animal companions, they're part of your family. They're around you all the time. They love you and support you no matter what's happening in your life. And they are already sending you messages. You are already sending them messages. The animal communication is already happening. So what I do is I show you how to redefine and pull that specific information out so you realize it's not your imagination. It's you really tapping into their energetic it's like a radio wave.
Their
It's like tapping into
frequency.
their radio
Yeah.
wave. And once they realize, and it's easy. It's not hard. It doesn't take any special skill. That's, I think, the biggest surprise people have is that sounds way too easy. What gets
Yes.
challenging is when you try to get really accurate information, detailed, specific information, because animals don't speak the same way that humans do. You can't say, hey, Fluffy, how you feeling today? How's the back pain?
Yes. Yeah.
You can't always talk to them that way. It's a different transmission of information back and forth. You have to. Every animal's different. They each communicate differently. Some are talkers. Some are show images. Some are just all about the feelings. Some are a little of everything. You just never know what you're going to get. You have to be ready for anything. You have to be prepared and open and realize, okay, incoming information, that's coming in, and being aware of it. So it's really a process that you sharpen with practice.
So tell me about your book, your new book, The Pet I Can't Forget.
It's all about signs from the afterlife and all the amazing and incredible ways that our animal companions send us signs from the afterlife to let us know that they're still with us, they're still around us, they see what's happening in our lives, and they are always near. And it's full of stories about some incredible signs. And in the last part of the book are actual afterlife sessions that I conducted over the years. Some of my most favorite sessions are in there.
So it's a great resource for people that are missing their pets and want to revisit maybe the life of their own pet and that be reassured that they're there waiting for them when they cross. So that sounds amazing. Can you tell us a little about your organization? And let me
Yes.
just say thank you to you and all of the people who donate their time to save animals out there. We love all of you, and the animals appreciate it. And I think that the people that work in saving animals are the most empathetic people on the planet. So I just wanted to say thank you and all worthwhile organizations to donate to. So, what is your organization?
The Painted Rain Ranch, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we save the pets that no one else wants. So what I do is I go to my local shelters and I ask for the pets that do not have a good chance of getting adopted, either because of their age, health issue, disability, special needs, medication, whatever it is. And I bring them here to our 30-acre ranch where they live the rest of their lives as part of our family. So we don't adopt out. They come here, they stay here, and this is their forever home. And the one thing that I want to share with you that's so important to me is that the proceeds from my books and all of my courses and coaching goes to the nonprofit. And again, I've devoted my life now to helping these animals in need because there's such a huge need for this. And, the pets that no one else wants, they deserve a good life too. They deserve love and a forever home, and I do my best to give them that here. And so that's my childhood dream come true.
Well, you're a generous, beautiful lady, so thank you for doing that. And where can people find you on social media, and where can they get your books?
My books are on Amazon and Audible. You can also order signed copies through my website, which is simply my name, KarenAnderson.net. And you can find all my social media links through my website. Also, download my free app, Pet Loss, Hope, and Healing. And we're really doing a lot of good things for the animals. We're helping so many, and I'll continue to do that. My goal is to keep expanding so I can bring more animals here. Right now, it's only my husband and I will only take on the animals that I can actually care for properly and give 100% of my time to them. But we hope to expand on that. And we rely strictly on donations. We have an Amazon wish list. We have a Chewy wish list. We need supplies all the time.
I love that. I mean, you're organized, which makes it easier for all the people out there that really want to help animals. And my Aunt Kitty passed a couple of weeks ago, and instead of flowers, she was an animal person. And this is just an idea for my listeners. She would much rather have me donate to charities. So I donated to a horse charity because she is a great lover of horses. And I also donated to a cat charity in her name. So donations in people's name as well can be very, it's a great exchange of energy for the person who passed to know that animals are being helped because of them, rather than flowers that are going to die in a couple of days. And honestly are kind of morbid looking funerals. So I think that would be a great way to memorialize people that are loved ones that you've lost. And thank you, Karen, so much for sharing your gift with us today. And thank you, my listeners. Tune in next Tuesday for a fresh episode of The Dead Life. I'm Allison Dubois, and this is The Dead Life. To all of my believers out there, don't stop believing.